stew. If you can get it down, it's really good. Okay, today I told you first about the Chuckwagon, why we're here, why it's here, what it means to us. The next part is about this fellow right here. Anybody that can't see him can come up and catch me, and I'll give you a closer look at this photograph. This is a photograph of a bona fide, full-blooded, employed Bar U cook by the name of Charlie Lehr, L-E-H-R, born in Germany, came to Pennsylvania when he was 16. When he came to Pennsylvania, he only stayed there for 1 year. Somehow he'd heard about Alberta. And remember, then it wasn't a province, it was a district of Alberta in the Northwest Territories. But he came to the Alberta Plains, the rolling hills, to the Northwest Cattle Company where we are today, the Bar U Ranch. Charlie was employed at the age of 17 to work on this notable cowboy feeding machine, the Chuckwagon. Now, what is interesting about the fact is that he was employed at that age to do this important job. I was talking to my wife about it and said, why do you think that they ever hired somebody 17, who today that's 17 would you turn loose in your kitchen to feed your family, let alone a gang of maybe 12, 15 men? He must have had some experience. So we're thinking maybe back in Germany, maybe his dad ran a cafe, maybe he peeled potatoes, maybe he made stew, maybe he'd seen beans. Anyhow, Charlie got the job. So he was employed at the age of 17, and he cooked and did work on this ranch and the surrounding hills for 12 long years, which is fantastic. You have to be good to stay anywhere unless you're married to them to cook for 12 years. But Charlie was there for that length of time. In fact, he was with the Bar U until 1899. By then, he had accumulated some money because you got to remember cooks were well paid because they had a very important job. A day rider in the saddle got 30 a month. A roundup cook could get 50 or 60. So he had a good job, and he apparently didn't spend it all. And he went into ranching when he left the Bar U. Now, he married in 1912, and I want to point out that it's fantastic we have so much written about Charlie Lehr, a ranch cook before 1900 at the Bar U Ranch in the foothills of Alberta. There are not many people that have that much written about him, but if you want to see it for yourselves, look in Leaves from the Medicine Tree, the story of High River and this district. There's a page and a half donated to Charlie Lehr, so he must have been impressive. He lived in the High River area and ranched in this area. He married in 1912, and they had 5 children. He passed away at the age of 73 in 1943. Now I want to tell you something about Charlie which will be obvious when you look at this photograph. He's wearing a white shirt, which is very clean, and he's also got a necktie on, which is not a bandana, but a tie, actually tied like you would tie a tie. So that's kind of unusual. And he looks very clean, and his camp is very organized, something like Miriam's camp right here. We don't see a lot of stuff lying around. So one of the outstanding things about Charlie Lehr was he was always clean and good-natured, in contrast to many cooks of the day. Some of the roundup cooks that worked these hills were given names which probably weren't said out loud to their face, because one was called Dirty Dick. He was not as clean as Charlie. Death on the trail, if you will. and Old Poison. So those names were probably whispered under their breath, facing the other way, not looking at the cook. And another thing, Charlie always had his meals ready on time. And I don't know when the judging is going to start, but you know, at 3. Well, if these are real cowboy cooks, their stew will be ready for testing at 3. They started at 11, so I'd say they'd had enough time. But Charlie always had something to eat, and everything was ready, and you didn't come into the camp till he said, come and get it. His equipment, they said, was always in top condition. He not only had to supply the wagon, clean all the utensils, he also had to take care of the harness for 2 or 4 horses. He had to drive his team with his wagon from camp to camp, because this is not meant to sit by Pakisco Creek all year. This wagon traveled from here all the way to Vulcan and probably as far south as Clare's home, because there were no fences. He always had his utensils in top condition, and in his day, I imagine he was called the cooking kid, because even though we've got some younger cooks today, we have some experienced cooks. And in the day of Charlie, most cooks were bent out of shape, broken down, too sore to ride, old cowboys that loved the open range. They liked the camp life, but they were not able to get out and ride a horse. So today, as we look at this Chuckwagon and are invited into this Chuckwagon camp, we're witnessing something that is an enduring symbol, something like a cowboy hat, but there is no other symbol or icon that represents the open range way of cowboy life more completely than the Chuckwagon. You can go all the way from here to Mexico, and I imagine you could even go to New York and hold up a photograph of this and ask on 5th Avenue, do you know what this wagon is? And somebody would be able to tell you it was a Chuckwagon. Now, we're very proud of that, and we're also proud of the fact that it's part of our heritage, because we are here today because this is alive and kicking. We hope that the cowboys today don't let you down any more than Charlie Lehr would have let you down in the 1880s. Thanks for your attention today, and have a good meal.